Okay, I'd like to welcome the legend that is Lisa McIntosh. So Lisa, welcome, and thank you so much for being involved in the Women in League project, Life with the Lionesses. I really appreciate your time. I've been really looking forward to this interview because I just know the history you've had in the sport and the impact you've had in the sport. And you being able to tell it in your own words is just so important. So welcome. And I want to start with, first of all, where did you start playing rugby, where you were born, and how old were you?
Right, so I was born in Scunthorpe. My dad was in the RAF, so we moved around a lot. But rugby wasn't, I was always been into sport. My dad was a good cricketer, my dad was into sport. My sister Julie were also into sport and got a keen netball and foot keen runner. But because I was a little bit of a tomboy when I was younger, sport was I've always played football with lads, always joined in anything that were outdoor. So I played football that was my first passion. I used to play at Man United Ladies, that was before obviously it's got the profile it's got now, which is great. I had a knee injury at 15, but in them days obviously we didn't get the sort of physio and things like that they get now, which obviously prevented me going any further really. I still played, but not to the level that I would have liked to have played. And eventually I had a cartilage operation when I was 17, and they removed my cartilage. Then continued for a little while, but then I was travelling myself. I used to get lifts across when I was younger, but when I was obviously at college and working, I used to then get the train on a Friday over to Manchester training. And I did that for a few years. And then it was becoming too much, obviously. I then started working for leisure services and things like that. So there was an advert in the Evening Courier. I probably would have been 19, 20. And me and my friend thought, oh, do you know what? Well, that'll be a good laugh. We'll go down and have a go at that. So, and that's how we started. And originally it was down, I think we started at Heath. Where one of the wives down at Heath started the rugby. There was a few of us, and we moved to Illingworth, and we played for a few years at Illingworth. And then we moved back down to Heath, and I played there probably for 4 or 5 years. And when we started to struggle for players and we folded, I had some time out and went back to football, and we're playing at Brighouse Ladies. And then I got back into doing touch rugby in the summer, and we used to play it down at Heath and at Illingworth. I really enjoyed it, and I got started. That's when I used to come across your likes of Mandy Green and them again, who played at Dudley Hill. But I remember when playing when she was like 12 and 13-year-old. And then I also worked with Jackie Sheldon because I worked for leisure services and she worked for leisure services as well. And we both at one time worked in sports development. So all that time that I was in and out of football and stuff, I remember Jackie from playing at Wakefield days, and I also used to work with her in Calderdale. So Jackie rang me to tell me that they were setting up an international squad again, and they'd like me to be part of it. And I just started playing with Driglington because I'd met some of the girls. I knew some of the girls from touch rugby, and I started playing for Driglington. And so I went for trials, the Great Britain trials with Ian Harris, who was the coach at the time. And then from then I was obviously I got selected. He asked me to be captain, and that was 96 up to 96 tour.
Wow, I know it all started sort of 1985, and you were involved in 4 of the then tours in 96, 98, 2000, 2002, all sort of captain. One captain, 3 of them captaining them, and your involvement was pretty phenomenal. I know, just to embarrass you, everyone we've interviewed so far always mentions you. And the impact that you've had sort of on and off the field, because you're such a larger than life character, but also, a pretty formidable player. And as we begin to uncover all the footage and things, people will see. And I think Ian Harris actually earmarked you as one of the best ever, along with Brenda, rugby league players, male or female, that he'd ever seen, just to embarrass you live here on the interview. So, you know, you've had and an impact on so many lives, and sort of, so you set yourself up, you started getting involved in 1996 and touring and captain. Tell us about that first tour.
Well, I mean, the training for that was, I mean, that was something that obviously we've never, as players, we've never done, because obviously we turned up, played winter, played in mud baths, and it were more social, more of a social. And obviously, when we obviously signed up to play for Great Britain, it became more professional. So you had training programs and fitness testing and things like that. And I really enjoyed that side, that discipline side. I enjoyed that side of it. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, I train a lot. I enjoy gym now, but I never really enjoyed going to the gym when I was younger, even though I played a lot of sport. I just wanted to be outside and play sport, not pump iron and have to lift weights. That wasn't my thing. But once we got into international squad, that was something that I really enjoyed. And as players, we used to team up and train together at different leisure centres, like with quite a few of the Bradford girls. We got sponsored by Calderdale, so they could get access to the facilities free at Calderdale to train. So we all used to meet up and train in that. But it was just, I think, the excitement of going. It was obviously we'd never been to Australia before. We had a really good team spirit. Players that we would normally obviously be sort of like battling with on the pitch, so to speak, we became friends. So we put all the club stuff aside and became obviously one team. Out in Australia, we obviously stayed in in Sydney, Canberra, and we had some really good experiences. The rugby was tough, something we hadn't experienced. Playing in obviously England, we played against each other quite a lot, but the competitiveness that you needed obviously to play international, we didn't get on a sort of like regular basis. So coming against Australians was a bit of a shock to start with. But I think the first game that we played, and we beat them, and I think that's because we were unknown to them as well. But the grounds are quite hard. I mean, I remember doing the national anthem, and it was like this creaky album. You could hear it. And we were singing the national anthem, but to be fair, none of us we didn't even know there was a second verse. So we obviously, everybody knew we'd practiced it as well. We used to practice it because it's something that we'd never sung. So we used to practice singing national anthem, but obviously didn't realise that we were actually a second verse. So when they let the record play, we were all like looking at each other, what's next? But some of the characters that went on tour as well. And I mean, you've got like Julie Cronin, who just was a laugh a minute, and Sally Flo from Barrow. Obviously, you've got Shelley Lamb, the Wakefield girls, and we just really had a really good laugh. Played some, and we were serious with this training, but also we socialised as well, and that was good, and that built that sort of like team spirit for the future tours as well. And that was because that was the first ever tour that we've done, and we actually won the series, which was even more remarkable. Coming back into the airport, you wouldn't have known we'd won a series because it was just like coming back from holiday. No, but it wasn't like anybody were waiting for us, no press wait for us. It was just we got off plane and we all went home. But the experience of being out there with those girls and building those sort of like really good friendships that today we are still, even though we might not see each other all the time, we still correspond. I mean, Facebook's been great for that. I mean, after obviously we had the dinner yesterday, and because there were a picture on Facebook, the amount of people that messaged me going, "What have you done to your hands? What have you done to your hands?" And Jane Banks, who's in honeymoon, she said, "Oh, I need to ask, what have you done to your hands?" So even now, we still keep in contact with people that we toured with. That, to be fair, we only ever bumped into each other twice a year, and we played them on a Sunday.
Yeah, because I mean, you were involved, weren't you, in I think it was 1989 when there was sort of a first trip to France that ended up. Yeah, so do you want to talk a bit about that?
So early on when we played, there was only probably 5 or 6 teams that involved, and I can't remember. I can't remember there were only 5 or 6, but I know Guiseley, I know they were Dudley Hill, Keighley. I think there was a couple of teams, I think, over border, Lancashire, it might have been Woolston, Warrington, I think. and we was invited to play in France. So we took a team out to France, and it wasn't until we got there we also weren't told that the French didn't play contact; they only played touch. So what we ended up playing touch, but we also ended up playing a contact game against, I think it was under 18s or under 17 lads, and they were determined that they were going to win. But when you've got people like Big Ange from Keighley and Michelle from Keighley who take no prisoners, we did okay, really. We did okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were quite disappointed because obviously we went out to play contact rugby, and the French at that time weren't playing contact rugby.
Yeah, so a very different experience, 96, where you actually came back. And in fact, the records state the last Great Britain team ever to beat Australia in the Ashes. What did your family and friends think about it?
Oh, I mean, they thought it was brilliant. I mean, not all my family have obviously been rugby league fans until obviously I started playing and my friends. And then when we used to play, they used to come down and watch. I mean, it was more evident when we were playing here and we had the World Series, because that was an opportunity for the friends and family to come and actually watch the Australians and the New Zealanders in that World Series, and that was really good. I mean, obviously, people in Halifax, because Halifax has always been a rugby league town, and the support that I got here was brilliant. The evening courier, the Halifax players, even to this day, people still say to me, "Oh, you used to play rugby," and they went, "Oh, a couple of weeks ago we were out with some of the golf girls to play golf now," and we would go to a restaurant in West Vale, and this lad who walked past, he went, "Hey, you're Lisa McIntosh." He said, "I always remember when you played rugby, you were dead hard." And he said, "And your thighs were bigger than my dad's." I think that might have been a compliment somewhere in there. But obviously, he was a kid. He was obviously a kid when I played, and he spotted me in West Vale.
How great's that? I didn't realise you were still getting recognised. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, for my thighs, bigger than your dad's.
For your thighs, yeah, bigger than your dad's, yeah. So you did the 96, came back, obviously winners, beating the Australians in the 3-test series. So what about the next tours? How did that begin to do a step change? Because the next tour was to New Zealand, wasn't it? How did that bring a step change to what you were doing?
New Zealand were a bit tough for me because I'd snapped my ACL, and I would be touch and go whether or not I would actually go on tour, because I couldn't have the operation because I wouldn't have rehabbed in time. So the plan was that I would just strengthen my legs as best I could, and obviously go and play, and then have the operation when I came back. And that's sort of like what I did. But whatever happens, it's always in your mind that your knee's not stable. And that was an eye opener because the New Zealanders was already playing quite good rugby union, and they had a really good rugby union side. And quite a lot of the players that then went to play in the Rugby League tests with us had come from rugby union. But the passing and the tackling from them was absolutely brilliant. But they were really, really, I mean, they used to hit you hard, really hard, but then they were so nice off the field. Like, but that was, I mean, the experience there, lovely country, lovely people. But that when we went there, that was when it was evident that we need to be bigger, stronger, and faster, really, because they were powerful, really powerful girls. And even though that obviously we did okay, we were never going to be at that level unless we upped our training programs, our strength training, and our conditioning, because we had the skills, but it was just that they were so powerful. And like I said, when they tackled you, you knew they tackled you.
Yeah. So how did that change then after that tour then?
Well, I think that Jackie Sheldon, who was I think working at the RFL, got extra funding. It allowed us to get conditioners in, so we then started working with Simon Worsnop, who worked with the professional men, and we did some really strict fitness testing where we had weight programs that were personal weight training programs, So it wasn't just a programme that we were all doing. Everybody had their own, depending on what their strength levels were, what position you played as well. We got fitness tested regular, and we just came a more professional body. We just came a more professional outfit. And the players that were selected, we were leaner, a lot leaner, but stronger, fitter. And that's what we needed if we were going to compete really against New Zealand, just because that's what they were already doing.
Yeah. So 2000 came round on home soil. What was that like?
I'd had good for me that I'd had my ACL, and I were back training fit, and a lot fitter, and obviously mentally you're a lot more switched on, because you know that your knee's not gonna collapse on you, or it's gonna be stable. But what was really good is the fact that the people that our family and friends and everybody that had been supporting us, like when we had done all the bucket collections previously, could then sit in the stands and watch us. The disappointment where we had floods, which is no cold December, but it still went ahead. But also it shone a light on us for people in England as well. So all these young people, we had lots of young players that had come to watch and wanting things signing, and you felt like a professional outfit. The hotel we stayed in when we stayed at Oral, which was our base really, they were fantastic. And they treated us like we were Man United. And we had the food, we had diets that, so the food that we had before matches, whereas rather than like we'd maybe, not me mind, some people having a McDonald's breakfast on way in car to a training or a match. The restaurant had a set menu that they had to put out for us, and then we had a pre-match meal. I mean, what was that? We had a pre-match meal where we sat and it'd be pasta and lot and carb up and things like that before we'd go out to play, because all the matches were in the evening. And it was just we were treated like professional athletes for the first time.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? That after all those years as well of that recognition and on the home soil, and you did pretty well in that one, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. And I think considering as well, we had to adapt because we had games that should have been at home, but then. I mean, the support around us with the fact that we should have been able to play at home. Obviously, the pitch was flooded, and the whole thing was transported by coach. Everything, food, catering, whatever, did we played at Oral, and we beat Australia. We always love to beat Australia in whatever, and we came really, really close, within 10 points to New Zealand. And we could see the difference, and they could see the difference, and they said the difference in what you played now, what we had played them we played them in 98 2 years ago, was massive, and it was evident that obviously the team had been training, had sort of like more professional people involved with us. But being based at Oral and being based together like that was also a great experience as well, because you all ate together, trained together, slept together, socialised together, did your team meetings together, and everybody were there all the time. We had downtime where people went home, and what were happening for those who travelled, they would stay with people who were local. So I had quite a few that would stay because I worked far. I know at Lancashire side they'd put players up as well. So it was really good, and it was really great to see families and friends that turned up on an evening to watch on an evening.
Yeah, and as you say, you had to self-fund it all, didn't you? So tell us a bit more about off-field and how you had to get the money to play a sport you loved.
So I mean, bucket collecting was a thing, but we did it at Rugby League rounds. And to be fair, when we first started doing it, it were like embarrassment. You felt quite embarrassed shaking your bucket, asking people for money. But we became professionals at that. We even had songs that we used to sing to get them, and people used to just give us lots of money. It was brilliant. And then when we used to go, we did Cardiff and Edinburgh, and places like that at Challenge Cup finals. And when you're getting permission and we know, even though you think it's a bucket collection, it's not that easy actually to get permission to do bucket collections at big venues like that. But we were given the bucket collection at the venue, and we made the most of it. We would we would turn it into a bit of a social, everybody having a bit of a laugh and a joke, and we'd laugh with all these sort of like fans that were going to the ground to watch the game, and it got to a stage where they recognised us from the last time the bucket collected, or we were outside Edinburgh doing a bucket collection.
Oh, you're here again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we also used to get a lot of sympathy. People saying, you shouldn't have to do this. You shouldn't have to. This is ridiculous. You shouldn't have to do this. But people put a lot of money into bucket. And even when I remember standing outside Edinburgh, and Bobby Goulding, I don't know what game it were, but he probably threw about 20, 30 pounds in one of our buckets. So that was quite good. And so that even like the professional men who were sort of like, they would support us as well, which was good.
Yeah, because there was a lot of sport off field as well, wasn't there, for sponsors and things like that.
Yeah. And I know, obviously, we had Paula Clark who sponsored shirts, Phil Clark, they sponsored. My friend Simon Shaw, they used to own like a catering business. They've sponsored the kit one year, and there were lots of people wanting. And as players, you've got individual sponsorship. So Calderdale Council sponsored me every time. They were brilliant. So not only did they get the time off, they also sponsored me, paid my sponsorship to go. But even though people had raised their money, you still went and did bucket collection. It didn't matter because we were raising it for somebody else who maybe didn't have Calderdale Council, or I know the posties who worked for Royal Mail, they also got sponsored quite well from their companies. But there were lots of people who struggled. So it didn't matter whether you'd raised yours, we still went out and bucket collected. But like I said, we became quite professional, especially we had our secret weapon. And we had Becky Stevenson, Miss Glamour Plus. So we used to throw her in front with bucket, and lots of lads then used to throw loads of money in.
She even got interviewed yesterday because of a glam. Things haven't changed.
But she was one that what we used to do is whenever we went on tour, we would always target Becky's makeup bag, because she paid to keep it. If she had a forfeit, her forfeit was she handed over a makeup bag unless she put money in this pot. Always put money in the pot. Always put money in the pot.
Good God love her.
People look at her and they think, oh, she's like a little Dolly Bird, hard as nails, and we're a cracking rugby player, cracking second row. And, me and Becky used to train quite a bit in the gym, and a dedication to doing fitness programs and to doing weight programs. She was a really, really dedicated, really strong lass.
Yeah, phenomenal. People just didn't realise, did they, when they saw her from the outside, but absolute phenomenal rugby player.
Jane Banks looked the same. I mean, Jane Banks looked like a piece of string, but her fitness, she was absolutely obsessed with getting the fitness and training and everything. And she was a tackle machine, an absolute tackle machine with Banksy.
Yeah. And I can't wait for all the videos to come out so people can actually see them, because particularly the internationals, phenomenal, weren't they? Phenomenal tackles, big hits.
Yeah. Oh, they were.
Yeah. So, what's the most what's been the most challenging in your international career?
I think most challenging for me was probably injury, because doing the actual sport and having to commit to doing the training was something I enjoyed anyway. So I think the time, obviously, because we all worked full time as well. So if I were at squad training, I might have been on shift, might have to take day off, might have to take day leave for squad training, things like that. So, but it became your life, because if you weren't working, you were training or playing. But when snapping the ACL was tough, because I'm quite powerful when I run, and I started to become a little bit cautious that someone take you from the side, someone tackles you, then you know there's going to be a consequence. So I had to get over that a bit as well.
Well, I know, and it takes a lot of mental toughness to do that, and I've heard players talk about it, and how difficult it is to come back from, particularly ACL injuries.
Yeah.
So you what's the most positive then around your international?
I think the people, the players, the sort of like the way we came together from nothing, from players just playing on a Sunday, seeing each other on a Sunday, to building that really strong squad. And not just those who played, but your physios, your jackies, yourself, Julia, because you refed us. They're not the best, maybe, but but all those that squad of players that throughout that time was brilliant, and we make lifelong friends. Even so off the field, and for me, a lot of the times, a lot of players came to me when if they were struggling, but you supported each other. You did support each other, and in those days when we didn't have your psychologists and things like that, you know what I mean, sports psychologists that supported players when things were tough. Because a lot of the players that went out there were mothers. They had bairns that they'd left behind, and it weren't just about all the training. It was about obviously they'd left the children behind as well, and some were quite young. But it was just a real. The first test I think was probably, even though it was great when we played here and they had all your family and your friends, but the first test, because it was the unknown, and it was a buzz when you actually beat them, and I don't think they expected us to, and that sort of like sparked everybody thinking, actually, this is all right. I like this winning in Australia.
Get used to a bit of that.
Yeah, get used to a bit of this.
Yeah. Because you became involved in coaching as well, didn't you? Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we did a lot. I mean, that opened a lot of doors for us, really, with playing at international level, because we also did the Women into International Coaching, which there was myself, Brenda, Jackie, I think Chantel, Banksy. We was sort of like sponsored to take part in this high level coaching, along with a group from women's football, I think women's rugby union, women's cricket. And we used to go to seminar, and they would put us through sort of like coaching badges, which then enabled us to then go on and coach. And I did England 21s, which was great, because what was great about that is a lot of the young ones that were just going through playing at club level were now started to become that next step to go international. So it was England 21s, but you had like 16. It was quite a big gap. There were probably quite a few at 16, 17, 18. Because the reality of it is, once our young ones got to like 20 and there was a good standard, they'd be in squad. So we had a tour to France with England 21s, and we joined in with England students as well for that tour. That was a good tour. But we used to play very similar. We did exactly the same training program that the open age squad did. We followed the same training with the same fitness testing. The idea was that those young people would slot straight in to the England squad and won't be out of the depth, because they'd know the players, they'd know what the programs were about. But there were a lot of those young players that we coached at England 21s then represented the England squad or Great Britain squad later on, and some even now went into coaching. But we had some good tours, and we toured Russia, and that was an experience. Because we stayed in, it was like student accommodation, but it was concrete. It were all concrete. And when you've got young players like Kirsty Maroney and Jenny from Wigan side, who was absolutely hilarious, could only have a shower between a certain time, because it's on a timer. And obviously we've got these young people who are pampered, who probably didn't make their own bed at home. And it was me and Martina Greenwood, who was there with me. It was quite an experience. In fact, I found it quite funny, because the toilets as well that we had to share were like something you'd get on a campsite. So there were like holes in the floor, and they did no but moan. It was hilarious. Danny Swain was there as well, and Jen Wake, great kids. Who obviously went on to play open age, but it was a good experience. But it was a really good experience for them as well, because the same sort of mentality. They're in a situation now, because I still see some of those young ones. They're not young anymore, obviously, and they have got the same long life friends that we've got from doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. That generation just took on from what we did, but kept the same sort of. They did bucket collecting. I did bucket collecting with 21s when we had to raise money to go and we had to go with France. They did all the same sort of forfeits, a kangaroo courts, all the same sort of stuff that we did at that open age. We just passed down my pain to them.
You've always been willing to share, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
So when you look back, you've had some awesome achievements, haven't you, within the sport, and made some great friendships along the way. So when you reflect back on what you achieved, what's that reflection like?
I think it was an absolute fantastic experience to play at that level, but also the friendships you make from people from all walks of life, and that's not just obviously because I have players from Australia on my Facebook. Katrina Fanning, who when we played, we hated each other. But now,
did you pinch your shirt?
No, she did.
No,
but she were a prop, and she were a big hitter. So we had. But now, obviously, she's on my Facebook page. She messages me now and again. I message her. But it's that experience, and it's a life experience as well, because you're away from home, and when things don't go right, you've got to adapt. So not only is it all the physical side, it's all the mental side. So it just made people mentally, I think, stronger. Give you lifelong friends, lifelong experiences, but it also gave you an opportunity to be put on that pedestal, really, and have people even to this day still remembering your name, still talking about you. And it's quite humbling. It's a really good feeling. It's a good feeling, even though sometimes that you feel a little bit, I suppose, a little embarrassed, but it is what it is. And I still get recognised to this day.
Yeah, and you represented your country at the highest level, and beat the Australians while doing it. So, yeah, absolutely. So you personally now, what would you say to sort of obviously this generation of rugby league where, it's great we've got the Super League, the game's beginning to grow, and internationally, globally, it's beginning to grow. Where do you see it sort of going in the future, and what would you say to that next generation about?
I hope it goes in the same. I hope the rugby league goes in the same way that rugby unions, they get the recognition that women rugby union get. That it becomes not a novelty. It's not a novelty to have international women rugby league players, which it shouldn't be. But I think for the next generation, I think they need to seize it. If they get the opportunity to seize it with both hands, put in the hard work, because it is hard work, and learn from past experience from us. Because I know a lot of them that were around when we played, and take our experiences and learn from them, but make long-last memories and friendships, because it's something that lots of people never get the opportunity to do, and never will get the opportunity to do. But I'm hoping, and it is going that way, that women's rugby league becomes women's rugby league, like women's football, women's rugby union, recognised by lots of people want to go watch it. It's entertaining, and it's not a novelty where people will think, oh, rugby league, oh, I didn't even know that the people played. Because even now people still think that, even though it's televised a lot, and because I think people don't expect that women play rugby league.
Yeah, and you were there from the beginning in '85 when that league set up, and still involved now in definitely watching and being involved in the ways. Have you got any ideas of if you want to be involved in any way in the future?
Well, I mean, the thing with me, I'm one of those people. If I'm going to do it, it has to be 100%, and if I can't give 100%, it's I don't like to dip my toe in and out, because I just don't think it's fair. Because I think you have to be committed. You have to be committed. And the thing with obviously with rugby league, it's all voluntary. So you go do it on top of everything else that you do. But I do keep in touch with obviously the players that played with me at Bradford, and we do events. Like we had a Bradford Thunderbirds reunion some years ago, which was fantastic. And I still like to, if I get a chance, go watch some rugby. So when they had the last World Cup here, I took the young girls from the school I work at to watch. I took them to the World Cup game. We piled in that minibus and we went to watch the Women's World Cup. And when it's here again, we will do it again. Because, like I say, lots of the young girls at schools will never have experienced rugby league, especially at the international level. Watching teams from Australia and New Zealand coming over here, so I'm looking forward to that. So that will be something that I'll look forward to and take some of the young girls and young lads if they want to go watch.
Absolutely, because it's amazing the ferocity, isn't it, of international women's rugby league. It's just up another level, isn't it?
And the last time that it was here, and we got there early because I wanted the girls to get some photos with the players and get autographs, and that's what they did.
Oh, brilliant!
And that's how it should be.
It is, and I remember I went to, and it was last year, the final at Headingley of the women's grand final, and it was lovely that Headingley was full of people there to watch the women's game.
Yeah.
And to watch the women's game, and there was every generation of people, and I just think that's just lovely to see. It was male, female. It wasn't the blokes on the touchline saying, "Oh, let's see if these women can tackle." They went to watch women playing rugby league, and I think that's just lovely.
Yeah, and also what's good is it is the women's cup final. In my day, I remember playing at Old Trafford as a curtain raiser in between the Yorkshire Lancashire or Division 1, Division 2 finals. So we ran on for 10, 15 minutes and played a bit of a curtain raiser, whereas now they get the stage to themselves, and so they should.
Absolutely. And that was a great event as well, about 40, 50,000 people, that Yorkshire Lancashire game.
Mm.
I refereed it. Don't know if you remember. No comment.
No, yeah. But we did that. That was something that we used to do on every year. To be fair, when I played at Halifax, Thrum Hall hosted us a couple of times as curtain raisers.
Yeah, they did. It was brilliant. Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. You're an inspiration to the people then, and also to the next generation. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for giving me your time.
And you too. Thank you. See you later.